Hey everybody, welcome to Etc. Live. I'm your host Kelly Baird. It is so good to be back with you guys. I am feeling fantastic, and I've been excited about this show for weeks. It is my pleasure to welcome multi-instrumentalist, singer, songwriter, producer. You may know him as the dynamic frontman for Age of Electric. He is the bass player and backup vocalist for Slash. He plays with TOQUE. He is just one of Canada's greatest exports, the incredibly talented Todd Kerns. Todd, welcome.
Hello. That's far too kind. And personal friend of Bret Hart.
And we got to throw that in there, hey?
Bret the Hitman Hart. In action figure form, anyway.
Right, there you go. Wow. Do you have a whole collection of them, or is that just the one?
I just randomly saw that in the store one day, and I was like, and it immediately made me feel like a kid. I was like, I love Bret the Hitman Hart. He was one of ours. He was a Canadian.
He was yeah. Well, that's very cool. And some people are popping in already. Hey, Claudia. Hi, beautiful. Nice to see you. She's just saying hi, Todd.
Hello.
Hey, so happy day. I know you're in Vegas right now, and tell the viewers at home what the freaking temperature is there.
It's 109. So anybody that knows the metric equivalent of that, please let me know. I don't know anymore. It's just. I think when I was dealing with metrics, I don't think I ever was dealing with that kind of heat. But this is kind of unusual because I think around this time last year we were already up in the 110s in that area. So it happens fairly regularly. But you can tell when you go outside and you just feel like you're going to burst into flame. You're like, it's getting hot. It's getting hot in Vegas. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If anybody knows the translation, let us know. Todd and I were talking before the show, and we just chalk it up to it's really freaking hot.
Yeah, I mean, if only we had machines that could look that up, but I'm talking online.
Right on, Todd. You have like a ton of really cool stuff on the go, and we're going to talk about the new single, of the current single. And I just got to say, it's always good to see you, Todd. And one of the reasons I love about a guest like yourself is that I am from Saskatchewan. You are from small town Saskatchewan, Estevan. And it just makes my heart happy to see a fellow Saskatchewan out there just kicking ass and taking names and right. I bet, right?
Yeah,
and that's one thing I will say about you, Todd, is that you are such an extremely humble. You are a gracious and humble person full of gratitude. And anybody that I ever mentioned Todd Kerns to will say that. And he's just a hell of a nice guy. He's just a really nice guy.
Well, that's far too kind. It's honestly, it's. I always have to correct it. I was born in Estevan, but I never really lived in Estevan. So it's really weird for me. We recently raised some money for the SPCA in Estevan because it was my birthplace. But I spent half of my childhood in northern Manitoba, Lynn Lake, Manitoba, and then back to Saskatchewan, to Lanigan, Saskatchewan, where I graduated. I did high school and junior high there. Right. So, it's, honestly, I was just saying the other day how weird it is to be, I was here at the Stanley Cup winning game for the Vegas Golden Knights, and
cool.
And to have grown up in a town that didn't have street lights and didn't have a 7-Eleven and didn't have a Subway or a McDonald's or any of that, in both of the towns that I grew up in, and then to find myself sort of, where parts, I can go to Manhattan and know my favorite pizza place and all that kind of stuff is a very surreal, I can't help but imagine that sort of like sliding doors thing where I could have very easily just kind of gotten a job at the mine and married my high school girlfriend, and I don't know, probably might be dead by now.
Well, who knows, right? Yeah. Or extremely bored.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think I would have found a way to make it interesting, I guess. Yeah.
Right. And speaking of that, how does one wind up? And I know it's a long story, but if you could tell us in a nutshell, Todd, how does one wind up? Like, how do you go from small town Saskatchewan to now living in Vegas? And if you give us the condensed version, because I'm sure it's a whole journey.
Well, I just, I started playing music, and I think I just had the audacity to think, because I remember being in our first like high school band and jumping in a van and driving to, we would play high school dances. We would, and I think as we were doing it, through the freezing cold and all that kind of stuff, some guys would just go like, this is not for me. And they would go to school and get a job and have a family and move on. And crazy people like me were still going, isn't this great? Right. I didn't care about money. I didn't care about any of that. I just loved the whole lifestyle of it. Just playing music and all that. To me, I felt like I'd won the lottery. You know what I mean? And a lot of people could not understand it because it wasn't about money, and it wasn't about comfort as far as like, well, what are you going to do when you're 65 years old? I go, dude, I may not even live that long. I don't know.
Worry about it then, right?
Exactly. So, and then, you get a gig, and then then you get another gig and another gig, and it just sort of ping pongs along. And there are times where you kind of feel like maybe that was my opportunity and that was my chance. So maybe I'll take a, shift into normal person gear, but then something else would always appear, something else would always pop up. And, I think I just, was very lucky and very, it's one thing to say lucky, but it's also to say working very, very hard. And
Absolutely.
I will say I do tend to, if someone asks me to do something, I will give 110% to make sure it's, I can do the best I'm doing for their project or for whatever's coming up. And I try to make sure that whatever I'm doing, I'm doing my best. So I think from that leads to another gig and leads to another gig. And when I came to Vegas, I had sort of already come out the other end of the Age of Electric and a solo album and Static and Stereo and all those things that I had done. And I came to Vegas just under the pretense of playing with my friends around Vegas, thinking like, well, maybe this is it. We'll play cover songs with my friends and just make money and ride off into the sunset. Then all of a sudden the phone rings and come jam with Slash. And the next thing you know, around the world 100 times. And I've been in Vegas for, well, I first sort of officially kind of made, a sort of, I never really moved here. Like I still kind of feel like I kind of came down here for a couple of opportunities and I thought,
never left.
Yeah, well, when they run out, I'll just come home, and it's sort of, that was in 2006, when I really do the math on it. It's like, like I think I've lived in Vegas longer than really anywhere else next to Vancouver's pretty damn close. But I feel like life is such an interesting thing because you can't possibly plan any of this. You just kind of, you roll with it. You really honestly just roll with all the changes and hope that you just come out the other side okay.
Right. And Todd, saying that, you probably couldn't have planned this if you tried. I mean, if you could be like writing out the script for your future, you probably could never have even foreseen something like this happening to you. I mean, the opportunities that you had and are continuing to have are just mind-boggling. And I mean, and you have your own star on the Canadian Hall, like in BC, you have your own.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I have no idea how that, whose wheels they greased to make that happen. But it, it was honestly, it's not my doing. It's, people get together and make that thing happen. And it's like, it's one of those things where you just go, really, like me? Because I'm still one of those people who has the audacity to think that the big things are still coming. I think that, every once in a while someone goes, you should write a book. And I go, I'd love to, but I still feel like there's so much more to do that I feel like it would be sort of premature to be writing a book now, and sort of feel like, and then, but I mean, like my book would probably be more of a motivational in a sense, that's sort of like, you're staring defeat in the face and being able to get up and go, well, maybe tomorrow will be better than yesterday or than today and kind of going on. But stuff like that star is bizarre to me to stand when you walk down Granville Street in Vancouver and you go, Sarah McLachlan, Michael Bublé, and Bryan Adams and Todd Kerns. They go, who let this guy in the neighborhood? So it's and now it's like Nickelback and Loverboy. They started adding bands to it, which I think is silly that they weren't adding. They would only do it for individuals, really. So they weren't really doing bands, and now it's starting to become everybody. And I'm like, it's one of the greatest honors of my life. And I keep getting, once in a while, I'll see posts online of people at the Star. They just happen to be in Vancouver, or they just walked by it and found it out in front. It's just down from the Roxy, right out on Granville Street in Vancouver. Yeah, it's awesome. It's still like one of those things. I can't believe it's there.
Right. And Vancouver holds a special place for you, right? Because that's where your children were born, and that's like it has a soft spot in your heart. So how cool that it's there.
Well, it really becomes sort of it's weird for the Age of Electric because people like Saskatchewan lays claim to us, Alberta lays claim to us, even Winnipeg sometimes lays claim to the very early days of the Age of Electric. So, because each of those places that I just brought up are really major components of what the Age of Electric was. We came from Saskatchewan. We toured a bunch in Alberta, spent so much time in Calgary and Edmonton in those really formative years that they do really deserve to lay claim to those early days of the Age of Electric. And then by the time we were going to Winnipeg, we started making videos there. We started making all these connections that were based out of Winnipeg. So they also deserve essentially the prairies, we consider home. Obviously, Saskatchewan is where we're from.
For
But,
sure.
but when we relocated to Vancouver, that's when we really started to kind of, head into a recording act kind of world. We were making independent music up to that point, but it wasn't until Vancouver we really started to kind of become, for all intents and purposes, a recording act, a recording and touring act, as opposed to a sort of independent, road band.
Right.
So
Right. And
Vancouver was really important to us. Yeah.
100%. And so, and now being that you live in Vegas, do you still consider yourself a hardcore Canadian?
Oh, always. Yeah. And that's the funniest thing is it's really hard not to, I was just listening to Shatner. William Shatner was talking to Mark Maron not that long ago. And it was really interesting to hear him talk about how, he's still Canadian, regardless. He's been living in the States for, longer than we've been alive, probably together. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's I think it's something you never let go of. I think that, it's really interesting being in Vegas and having been here so long that I've watched the Riviera and the Stardust and the Frontier and all these classic casinos disappear and
Right.
new ones appear. Hockey teams, football teams, now a baseball team, and talking about an NBA team. Watching a city like this change, because it's another city in the same way that Vancouver was so good to me. Las Vegas has been incredible to me, and the United States has been really good to me as far as Los Angeles and the Slash thing and all that. So it's really, you really become a citizen of the world, and I think that there's nothing wrong with saying that. Having a great deal of loyalty to where I come from, and my little knowledge of Canadian football is always going to be about the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So it's kind of it's just the nature of that's always going to be the case. And but being here, it makes you realize that that home is just like I go back to Regina, or we go to Winnipeg, or we go to Calgary, or we go to Vancouver, or I go to LA or New York, or sometimes we go to London or Brisbane, Australia. I go to places where I have friends all over the world, and I just feel like the world is such a fascinating. I'm just about to go to Italy right away, and Milan, and all these places that I go, and everything's so familiar. And there's that one restaurant I really like, and those people that I got to hang out with them, and it just makes you realize that the world is so small, as big as it is.
Right. It really is. And with music uniting us, it really does become smaller.
It does, yeah.
When you have that connection with the music communities wherever you go, it does become smaller. And I think it's totally okay to, I'm not one of these people that thinks because you're in Vegas, you've lost your Canadian loyalty. Because I think both can be true, right? Right, people? Both can be true. You can be a proud Canadian and you can be proud to live in Vegas too. And
what's funny when you say talking about all the different things, in my career and all that, I suppose in a perfect world, because I always think how weird it must be to be an Aerosmith or Kiss or the Rolling Stones, where it's like I started a band when I was 20 years old and now I'm 80 and I'm still in the same band. It's the Age of Electric would have just been the thing that I did and I still did, and there's another parallel universe where that is the case. And I still live in Vancouver and I still have that life. But, I think, when things happen, when a band, we were too passive aggressive to officially break up. We just sort of we just stopped playing together out of just, for a number of reasons, most of which I don't even know if any of us could really put into words.
Right.
And I think that, you just you're forced into a position to go is there really the opportunities that I need in front of me here? Or do I have to go out and find them and go out and seek them out? And for me, it just became a case of it really opened a lot of doors to kind of go, well, let's go see what else is out there. Let's go see what else the world has. And I could have just as easily moved to London, England, or, Berlin,
right.
And figured it out. But it's kind of Vegas just happened to be, had some friends here and just came down and there's a Todd Kerns Day in Las Vegas. There's a thing back there, but and that's one of those weird things that in Las Vegas, the place that I came into in the last chapter, it felt like I'm going to Vegas, going to make some money and just ride it out. You'll never hear from me again. Wrote a song called "Going to Vegas" with the Sin City Sinners, And it was all about that. I'm going to Vegas, and that's just going to be the end of me. And but it opened up a whole other story. I mean, I think that's the most interesting thing about life, is that no one really knows. And when you think you're kind of like, sometimes you think you're done, and it's just like, no, you're just beginning a new chapter.
Right?
That chapter is done, but now there's a whole new thing that can take place.
Right. I love that. I love that concept that that you are a citizen of the world. And I mean, what better place to call home than, the entertainment mecca of the world, pretty much.
Yeah,
right. So
pretty much. Yeah. I'm the most boring person in Las Vegas. I don't drink, party, or gamble, but but
that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah. I will survive all things Las Vegas. Yeah.
I've been to Vegas a few times, and I pretty much just about needed rehab like the day after I got out.
Yeah.
So good on you, Todd.
Most people do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, good for you. There is a ton of people, and I knew this was going to have a ton of people coming in. I have to say hi to my sister because she is one of your biggest fans. Hey, Leanne Sean, hi, sweetheart. Lisa Guliak is in the crowd.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. We
Priestville,
love her.
Saskatchewan.
You know what? I played Priestville, Saskatchewan, and Lisa and I were having this conversation.
I played Priestville, Saskatchewan, like the high school dance back when I was a kid. Yeah.
Is that right, eh?
Oh yeah.
So, again with the small world thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and Robert Young is in the house. Dino Vizzuti, Kim Falvo. There's so many people. I'm not going to get to you all. And speaking of Robert Young, they are my official show sponsors, Writers and Rockers Coffee Company.
Absolutely.
And Todd just happens to have his own Rockstar endorsed blend, which I drink all the time right here.
That's awesome.
It's the Todd Kerns Damn It Brew. And not only that, Todd has his own mug, which I'm actually...
Yeah, there you go.
Look at me go, hey, Todd?
Yeah.
It tastes...
It's the only way to drink it.
Out of a styrofoam cup, not so much, but the Todd Kerns mug.
That's a surreal thing too. I mean, I love those guys. They're so good to us. And we made an Italian blend for my trips to Italy, and we brought a lot of our friends in on it. LA Guns and a bunch of other bands that we love and artists.
Yeah, they got new blends out now too. Yeah. Robert Young has got a good thing going on there, and so big shout out to him. He's the official.
It's great coffee. Ultimately,
it just is. Damn it! It is damn good coffee. I have a whole shelf just full of it. It's
absolutely.
I too don't drink alcohol, so coffee is kind of my big thing, and I always feel like I'm treating myself when I drink the Writers and Rockers, because it's just, it's endorsed by your. Well, I am. Damn it.
Yeah.
Speaking of damn it, for the people that may not know, where did that nickname come from? Well, I know, but some people.
Well, Todd Damn It rhymes with God Damn It, and it was just an old school nickname that came up when we was just kind of like Toddzilla or any other number of things. But when I first came in, it was another liberating thing to come to Vegas and not having a bunch of people who don't know who Todd Kerns is. I had established all these things in Canada, and it was very liberating to come somewhere and have people just go, you're just some Todd guy. No one knows who you are or what you've done, and you really have to prove yourself all over again. And it was awesome to be able to kind of like step on stage and go, okay, let's go. I mean, am I going to win these people over, or am I just going to be like lost in the shuffle? And just as a gag, we used to introduce, it was myself and Brent Muscat from Faster Pussycat, and we put together this thing called the Sin City Sinners, and it literally started in a place called the Dive Bar. It was literally a dive bar. Every Tuesday night we would play, and it was just fun. We literally did it for fun. There was no reason. There was literally no money in it. Right. It was just kind of like for fun, and then it became so popular that these Vegas casinos started to go, we want to book this. And I'm like, you want to book this in your
really?
upscale establishment? And we did, and it became very popular and very successful in Las Vegas. And but at the time, I'd only introduced myself on stage as Todd Damn It. This was a gag, It's kind
right.
of like, and Vinnie Paul, God rest his soul, from Pantera and Hell Yeah, he only knew me as Todd Damn It. He would scream it across casinos, Todd Damn It, and Vinny's here. And
he just sounds to other people. He just sounds like he's pissed off at you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Todd, damn it.
That's this weird curse word. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it became kind of a gag, and then it just sort of, and then I never really intended to use it as a professional name. But then Slash would introduce me as he would introduce me with the whole, Todd motherfucking damn it Kerns. That's
the full version, right?
He used my full name. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then it really stuck. And I wore a Damn It shirt. My friend Doc Ellis, who plays bass in the Sinners, he gave me a T-shirt for my birthday once, and it just said "Damn It" on it. And I wore it on stage. I wore it on a DVD that we shot in 2011 with Slash, and that shirt went out to the world, and everybody was like, "I want I want that shirt. Where do I get that shirt? I go, this is the shirt. This is the only shirt. What are you talking about? So then we made a shirt, and now that's a whole other wing of the empire, which is kind of more like an umpire. It's just kind of a little thing that we do. But I always said, I never got into this business to sell T-shirts and coffee, but I always have so much fun doing it. I grew up I grew up loving Kiss. There was a Kiss pinball machine in my living room, and all that stuff. So the idea of being able to put your name on cool stuff is like awesome. Bring it on.
It's great marketing. It's it's fun and it's great marketing.
It's fun.
And by the way, people can get their own Damn It T-shirts now, along with a lot of other cool merch on your website.
Yeah.
Do you tell us where to get that?
ToddKerns.com. We have a company called Damn It Wear. We're partners with another company called Agent Royale. They do a lot of different prints as well. They've gone on to do a lot of cool stuff with the Hollywood Vampires and a lot of cool people like that. But they've always been really good to us, and they've been there almost since the beginning. So they do a lot of the really cool Damn It stuff that I often wear and that you'll see around. So yeah, it's fun. It's another cool thing to have out there.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Right on. And you played with, you were just naming some names, and you have played with a lot of, like I said, some real giants in the rock industry. I'm not sure who you grew up listening to. I mean, Slash being one of them, of course, and Lemmy and Alice Cooper and Rick Nielsen, Duff McKagan. I mean,
Gene Simmons just recently.
Is that right? Eh?
Yeah, we've there's a very short list of all the bands that I really loved, and I would always say that the top three bands to me were Kiss, the Ramones, Guns N' Roses, all those bands. I mean, and then you get into Cheap Trick, the New York Dolls, and all these bands. And I've been lucky enough to play with a bunch of members of Kiss. Nobody from the Ramones, but there are a few surviving Ramones from the Ramones family tree. Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick, we've managed to be on stage with. I've met the guys in Cheap Trick many times. I'm still a very huge nerdy fan of them. Sylvain from the New York Dolls, I got to get on stage with him. Right. It goes on and on. Slim Jim Phantom from the Stray Cats. That's why I have this upright bass I
love them.
It has a yellow submarine. It's got a bunch of stuff hanging on it right now, so it's not really. But I was really into upright bass for back then, and when Jim was coming to town, I was like, well, I'm playing upright bass. I mean, if we're going to play with Slim Jim Phantom, we're going to do it right. So,
of course.
So I've been very fortunate that way. And a lot of that was happening before Slash even came along. But with Slash, you get to play with Duff McKagan. You get to play with, I play with Steven Adler. And, it's all, I don't mean for it to sound as kind of like throwaway as it sounds. It just becomes sort of normal in a way, back in the day, all the guys I play with back with just around my scene. And now it's kind of like my scene is this whole other world. Like you said, Alice Cooper and Lemmy became like, these guys that were like gods to me became very regular jammers. They would always be in our circle hanging around. Lemmy was as close as you can get. Like we would just see him all the time. And he was really an amazing man, and an amazing man and an amazing personality to be around. I would see him, whatever he was doing, he's one of those English gentlemen that knew how to kind of like, he probably woke up and started drinking right away.
Right.
But he can maintain. You would never get the impression. He would never be out of control. He would never be kind of like, he was always very rock solid. You could have a solid conversation with him, and other people would be, drunk out of their minds and falling all over. And he was just this rock solid balance of whatever he was doing, But he was an amazing guy. Like he was just a really amazing person to be around. And I was going to say, he seemed like a real role model other than all the stuff he was doing.
Right. Aside from that,
and the drugs. He was like the guy. He was the kind of guy I went, wow, I want to be like Lemmy, because if you knew him, you knew you'd go backstage and there'd be all this hubbub and chaos going on, and Lemmy would be sitting in the corner. He used to come in with a plastic bag full of paperback novels, and he would put them down, and a bottle of Coca-Cola and a bottle of Jack Daniels, and he'd put on his reading glasses and he would read. And then he would comment on what everybody was talking about. He would just say, "Oh, it was World War II." He would know what battle it was, and then he would keep reading. And I would just be like,
he was paying attention, though.
He was insane. Yeah, it was really crazy. Yeah, the world is not the same now that he's gone.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And but you know how cool that you had the opportunity to, you know, to meet with him. And is there anybody
Absolutely.
on your bucket list, Todd, that you would love to work with that just hasn't happened
Uh,
yet?
well, I mean, as an OG rock and roll fan, it's like the Paul McCartneys and the Keith Richards and that kind of class of human. I mean,
Right.
it's nice if you believe in that stuff as much as I do, as far as the magic of music and all that. To me, it's like really like having these legends still walking the earth with us is still bizarre. The fact that Elvis has been gone, he's a myth now. You know what I mean?
Right.
And even John Lennon and those guys, it's sort of like they actually breathed oxygen on this planet at one time. But Paul McCartney is still here. Ringo Starr is still here. Keith and Mick are still here. It's like
Right.
we have hung out with Ron Wood on a couple of occasions, and that was a trip. One time we were recording the Apocalyptic Love album that came out in 2012. We were sitting in the kitchen in this studio in Hollywood, and we're eating, and I can hear someone playing my bass, and I go, "Who's that?" So me and Brent Fitz, we open the door and we look in, and there's a Rolling Stone with my Gibson T-Bird on going doo 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 doo, and I'm like, what? It's like,
What is
and he's
going
like,
on right now?
hello lads, like, whoa. I was like, it just blew up. And then we had dinner with him that night or the next night, I can't remember, but it was just like with Lemmy and Ronnie Wood. Where we had dinner with Slash and the guys. It was one of those nights where you're just like, what the hell is going on here? It's like
Right. Is this, yeah, life is
I
good.
I came from Lanigan, Saskatchewan. It's like,
Right.
yeah. None of this makes sense. Yeah.
But you know, I love that you can acknowledge how surreal that is, because that's that humility coming through, Todd, right? Like when you can sit here and say, like, you know, because some artists are of the nature of, yeah, I had dinner with blah blah blah, and it's not a thing. But for you, you know, to say that, you know, it's surreal, and it's very cool, and you feel fortunate to do it, is a quality that I think people love that about you, just that
Well,
genuine.
I will say, with guys like Lemmy, it'd be like, I am wired so that every time I would see Lemmy, I'd be like, hey, Lem, it's Todd. I play with Slash. And he would go, I know who you are. You guys, he would just know. And everybody that you talk to always goes, yeah, he always knew. He would sometimes just text people happy birthday. And you're like, how would Lemmy know it's so-and-so's birthday? If he knew you well enough to have your phone number, he would do that kind of stuff. And
Wow.
it was always kind of like, you kind of learn from that, and I think that at the same time, no matter what, there's always people that it's just weird, like it's never, and if you get to a point where it's normal, like the first time I ever saw Kiss, Bruce Kulick was the guitar player. That was a
Right.
very pivotal thing for me. And now Bruce is a day-to-day phone call friend of mine, and that goes for quite a few people that I've known now over the years, and including Slash and quite a
Right.
few people that you just kind of like, you realize that they're just people. But I think that I've always taken their accomplishments to be important, and to be, important, especially to me, like into what I love about music and what I love about my favorite things on the planet are things like this, and that's the kind of thing that I will never lose that kind of magic for. You know what I mean? I think it's
Right.
important. I think that's important.
Yeah, never lose the wonder. Like you never, like you want to stay amazed. That's one of my favorite sayings. Stay amazed. You know,
I
just
think so.
yeah,
Yeah, I
one
think
hundred
that's a great
percent.
way to say it.
And so, what's Slash like? Is he, you know, because he had such a reputation for being kind of a wild guy. But
Yeah.
yeah, what's he like? Are there
No,
shenanigans on the road, or is it pretty laid back these days?
well, it's funny because there are people that I know who say, they'll say, I don't know the Slash that you know. They'll say to me because they knew Slash
Way
before.
right,
So as long as I've known Slash, from the very first day that I started playing with him, I remember thinking there's something unusual that I couldn't quite place until I realized he's not smoking. You've been so accustomed to seeing that cigarette and the
heck
constant
yeah,
and a bottle of Jack Daniels and that whole thing, and I think it's almost sort of this misleading idea that he was this wild animal kind of guy. In reality, he was he was actually he's actually a very well read guy. I don't even know if
right,
he likes. I don't even know if he would appreciate me telling people that, but he is. He's always got a big book that he's like. It's like a World War II, or he's always watching World War II documentaries, and he's that kind of guy, And he's very well read. He knows a lot about a lot of things, and the Slash that I know is a very healthy, exercising and jogging and taking care of himself. I mean, I know, keep in mind that between Slash, Duff, Steven, Adler, they all nearly died. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they all nearly didn't make it through, and I think they came out, for all of them to come out the other side
is something, right?
Yeah, particularly Duff and Slash, who are both in incredible shape. Like, I mean, Duff is a monster. Steven's in great shape too for who he is. I mean,
Right.
he's suffered through a couple of some health stuff as well, but he's still playing, still going, still an awesome individual, and it's one of those things where, again, many lessons to be learned. Slash is very thoughtful. He he's met my parents, met my father since day one. My dad came to, I don't know if you've ever heard that story, but my dad came to, yeah. My dad came
to your audition. Your dad came to the audition.
Yeah. Just because we were together, I'm like, you want to go to LA? And he's like, I've never been to LA. I go, well, let's go.
That's so Canadian.
Yeah, I know.
I love it.
Anything ever. So he's known my dad, since the first day he met me. So
right.
So he's always like, hey, how are your parents? He's like that kind of guy. So he's keep in mind, Slash lost his mother, before I met him and all that kind of stuff. So he's a big believer in family and all that kind of stuff. So I like to. I call him a friend. It's like, sure, we're bandmates, and he's, for all intents and purposes, is my boss. But at the same time, I feel like, I feel very tight with the guy as far as, like, most of the time, our communications have very little to do with music or what we're doing.
Right.
It's never really about like, hey, are we getting together? Or it's mostly about, have you seen insert movie here or insert series here? It's like, and
right.
Yeah,
which is nice.
That
right?
one's good, because we share a lot of the same interests. He's a big horror guy. I'm more like sci-fi and superheroes and all that nonsense, but I like horror as well. So our worlds cross over, Black Mirror or something like that. We always have these things in common. And I'm a film nerd, and he's a film nerd. He's a film nerd that lives in a whole other class where he became a producer of films because he has money.
Just cut to the chase.
If I was a gazillionaire, I'd start a production company too. Oh yeah, let's make movies. That'll be fun.
Yeah, just do something different. So I want to just change beats here for a little bit. So Todd is going to ask the question, because we are partnering up, Central Live is partnering up with Good Times Comedy Club Lethbridge, and we're going to be giving away free tickets all summer long. And so we should go ahead and get that question out, Todd, so that we can then talk about the answer
okay.
without giving it away. So Todd is going to answer the question, and the first two people to answer will get there's 4 tickets to give away.
So they're going to answer right here on the...
Yeah, they're going to answer. So go ahead.
Okay.
I'll give you a drum roll.
All right. This question is, what is the most recent single/video release from TOQUE? It just came out not that long ago. I don't even know how many videos we've made, but we made a video released a video not that long ago for a new single, and it was the last one. So if anybody knows,
type it in, people.
I'm not seeing the answer, so
everybody's like Google.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I should put it, and you got 10 seconds to do it. There we go.
Exactly.
Right.
That was the cool thing, is because we've done, TOQUE started as for all intents and purposes, a tribute band to Canadian music. As you know, we started off recording versions of Canadian classic rock songs, and then we started writing our own songs, and then the stuff like, well, Never Enough for You, and a few of the others, not to give the answer away, became our focus. It doesn't mean we won't continue to focus on doing cover stuff, but Corey Turco's been on the road with Shania Twain all year, so we decided to kind of like, even though we considered like, well, we probably could do some shows with a different guitar player, or just fill in guys or whatever, and we just thought we'd rather wait for Corey and do it right. You know what I mean? It just makes sense. Yeah. So we just decided to put everything on hold until he's done, and so around November we will start kind of materializing with new stuff, probably a new single and probably new shows. Yeah.
That's exciting stuff. And, speaking of TOQUE and just mention, that is one band with a serious lineup. Like there's, your band members are no slouch either. That is one lineup. Like you mentioned, Corey and, with Shania, and Brent also plays with Slash, does he not? And,
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about the other band members in TOQUE, because
Well, Shane Gallus, the drummer, he just filled in for Billy Idol, which was so cool because a friend of ours from Australia, Luke, he recorded this version of, he wanted to record this version of Atomic Playboys by Steve Stevens, an old 80s track he did. So I sang and played bass, and Luke played guitar, and Shane played drums. And then Steve Stevens reached out to me one day. Another guy that I kind of know now is Steve Stevens from Billy Idol, who's like one of my all-time favorite guitar players. And he reaches out, he goes, "Hey, do you have Shane's info?" And I go, "Of course." So I just gave him Shane's info, and then Shane played a couple shows with Billy Idol. I go, "Dude, that's the coolest thing ever." I'm such a huge Billy Idol. I've been a huge fan since Generation
Me
X.
too. Me too.
So, but he's played with like Yngwie Malmsteen. He's played with Michael Schenker. He's played with a lot of very cool people over the years. He played in a band called the Bees from Tokyo for 15, 16 years. He was living in Tokyo, playing like the Tokyo Dome is like 60,000 people. They would play like multiple nights there. That's how big that band is over there. Brent's played with Vince Neil and Alice Cooper and Slash, and Corey's been with Reba McEntire and Kelly Clarkson and Shania. So it's yeah, everybody's no joke. I've known Corey since 1986. When we do the math on that, that's how long we've known each other since we were kids. And his brother and his family, I've known all of them that long. And Brent I've known about, well, probably not long after that, and Shane not long after that either, because we all played on the Prairies club circuit. So that's just how we rocked it. Yeah.
Right. And Todd, and you were saying that, you got your start doing a lot of the covers, and people still really love to hear you do these amazing Canadian classics. And I'm wondering, because I saw you in Tabor last summer, and you guys were just rocking the Street Heart and the Canadian classic. And what do you think it is about those songs that people are still so driven to want to hear, and they just resonate with people still to this day? And some of these songs are 35, 40 years old. What do you think it is about that genre of music?
Well, I think that it's it's very much ours, you know what I mean, in Canada. It's the most interesting thing is when we originally started recording those songs, we thought, my intention was like, I love this song so much. I can't believe somebody from, whether it's Florida or South America or Australia, has never heard this song before because they didn't live in Canada. And it's been really rewarding to have recorded versions of those songs and have people go like, "Dude, I love this stuff. I love this song." And I go, "That's exactly what I wanted, was this person from Tokyo or from, Berlin to go, I love this song." And you're like, "Yeah, dude, it's been around for 35 years. It's like, but that was the whole point of that, I think was we just kind of wanted to show the love and the respect for that. And it's been a great way to bring four guys together, was just the kind of a shared love of guys who live in the US but grew up on all that music.
Right. And you okay, so we do have some answers. Can you see the comments, Todd?
I cannot. No.
Okay, so and I first have to make this comment, and this is from Ken Holst from Spider Entertainment, of course. He's just saying that he is going to miss you at Cornstalk this year, but always Cornstalk 2024.
Of course, yeah.
Exactly. That's coming up. So we do have a bunch of answers. But first, I'm going to just go through them and make sure that I have the correct first two. But Todd, I really did want to touch on your guitar line with Prestige.
Yes, Prestige is out of Vancouver. I've known them, I think they're heading into their 20th anniversary right now. I've known them since the beginning. My friend Mike started the company, and I literally met him just when he was doing these sort of prototypes on what do you think of this and what do you think of that. I don't think I have any in here at the moment. They're usually all what I play live. So, and they, as the years went by, they did a signature of mine very early, and then we did a signature in 2017. We did a guitar, and then the next Slash record, we did a series of basses that I've been playing ever since. And those are great. It's been like, a dream come true. Again, another one of those things like I still salivate over guitar magazines. As you can see, I like guitars. So it's one of my favorite things in the world. But,
is that what you play on stage? Is the Prestige what you play on stage?
I mean, I do play other guitars because I love guitars, but at my main guitar that has my name on it is a Prestige. And Corey Churko's as well. His is a signature Prestige. Yeah.
Right, cool stuff. So, okay, so I think our two winners are, and I'm going to be honest here. I'm kind of blind right now. For two reasons. I have like a 500-watt front spotlight on my face, and my glasses are kind of foggy. But I think Sheldon Harvey, who's a very talented local guitarist, and also
Great.
Ken Holst. Those are the two winners for the two tickets. And if I'm wrong, whoever is on top of that, I will also get you free tickets too. So don't worry if I screwed that up.
That's awesome.
You're all gonna get. You get tickets. We get tickets. We all get tickets. You get a car. You get a car. No, but you do.
There's cars now. Wow.
Wouldn't that be cool? Eh? Suddenly I'm Oprah. So I had a couple questions for you because you have children.
I do.
You have kids.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be the one piece of advice or the one life lesson that you would want them to learn from you?
Well, it's funny because I've had a lot of, I think that the biggest lesson they probably have learned from me, whether I sort of actively sat down to teach them, was someone like me pursuing something so off the normal path, I think in a lot of ways has made them not necessarily want to pursue that. It's funny. My one of my daughters plays in a band with her boyfriend right now.
Oh, cool.
Called Rat Pack from Vancouver, and they're meant to be doing some touring this soon. So I think in October they're going to try and head out to Calgary. They're both really talented musically, but I don't think that they really kind of looked at it like they looked at their father's life and thought, I don't know if that was really, I think it was just the reality of it. I think sometimes when you see your parents just have normal jobs, you just think of this sort of fantastical idea seems so much more interesting than your parent does it. It just seems like, oh, I know what that's about, and maybe it's not quite. They've seen me, through when I think about back on it, they've never really seen me other than sort of like constantly doing something, and constantly working. So, and for all intents and purposes, succeeding in something that should not have been is not a guarantee. You know what I mean? And the only advice I try to give my kids is, just kind of like, pursuing just whatever makes you happy is really the goal. I think that's sort of
right.
If you can find something that makes you happy, just keep doing that. If you can figure out a way to get paid doing it,
even better.
Yeah. But I think the whole idea of just kind of just do your best and just pursuing happiness. And if it means you have a job that that job pays for you to kind of be able to do your happiness, then I guess that's a way to look at it as well. But I think we're only now starting to realize that a lot of kids would go off to school, incur a whole bunch of debt, not even pursue the career that they took school in, and realize that, is it really the best to be starting off my life being $50,000 in debt or whatever, and
right.
And I'm like, because I never did that. I just went jumped in a van and started playing music. And, it's not really about 401ks and all that kind of stuff, but you figure it out. Honestly, it's been such a fun mystery to me, kind of figuring this all out and becoming a grown up and going, okay, well, now what do we do so that the next 20, 25, 30 years of this, before I can't do this physically anymore at all, maybe, as my friend keeps pointing out, every time you go, man, I'm getting older, and then he'll always say, well, Ryan Dahl from The Age of Electric said to me once, he goes, well, you're younger than Mick Jagger.
There's always that.
And I go, you're right. And Mick Jagger's still crushing it.
Yeah. It's a different world these days. It's different, like 60 is the new 50 and 50 is the new 40. And,
exactly.
So it's a very different world nowadays. And the other side to that phrase too is, we're all getting older. It's like, well, it's better than the alternative.
That's exactly. Yeah.
Right.
I 100% agree with that. It's kind of like, I think that, I think I still have that really crazy audacity to keep thinking that there's still so much left to do.
Why wouldn't there be?
I really don't have that feeling of like, been there, done that. I still feel like, no, it's like, just the other day, Frank, our guitar player in Slash's band, he's been playing with Wolfgang Van Halen's Mammoth, and they played Wembley Stadium, and I'm like, dude, that is so awesome, because I was a huge fan, and
right.
Live Aid, and watching Freddie do that in Wembley Stadium. but I'm not the kind of person that gets jealous about it. I go, dude, you're there. You're at Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. You are living your dream, you know?
Yeah.
And I think to myself, like, this person I know has played there. There's a good chance that someday I could play there as well. You know, it's like,
Right.
so I just, you know, I think that there's always things to look forward to. There's always things out there that, you know, I think that's what life is like all these great opportunities to keep, you know, sort of focusing on and trying to figure out if you can do it yourself.
I agree. And you know what? I always was raised with the theory that if one other person can do it, why not you?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if one other
I feel
person
the same
can,
way.
yeah. And so I want to get back to, because of course, so Sheldon Harvey and Ken Holst from
Right.
Spider Entertainment are the winners, and the answer, of course, is Something for the Pain. So let's talk about that. What a great song! And I'm wondering what the inspiration was.
You know, oddly enough, that's a Shane Gallus came up with that riff. Shane is an incredibly talented guy. That it's so funny how drummers always get the short end of the stick with a lot of stuff, but he's really always very involved in the songwriting, and he's really I don't know if you ever get a chance to just watch his Instagram things of him just playing drums. It's bananas. Like I don't even know what the hell he's doing half the time. He's got lots of jazz chops and all that kind of stuff. He looks 10 years younger than all of us for some reason, but he's like, you know, he's my age. You know, it's like
Right.
But yeah, he came up with that riff, and it's really heavy and really it's a drop C kind of tuning and all this kind of stuff, and it kind of freaked out. One or two of the guys were like, I don't know, is this a little too crazy for us? And I was like, and I was into it. I was like, no, dude, I came up with that chorus right away, and it just felt right, you know. And it just, the weird thing about TOQUE is that the songs come together really fast. I think that we're always very, you know, everybody's in the kitchen together, you know, kind of going,
Right.
hey, you chop up the onions, and you know, just all throwing this in the stew, and it ends up being great. I mean, honestly, that's my favorite song so far. Has been
I love it.
The Pain. Yeah,
I love it. And one of my questions was going to be, what was the writing process? What does the writing process for TOQUE look like? And you kind of, I think, just explained that. It's a group effort, obviously.
Yeah, the weird thing is that shooting the video, I mean, Corey and Shane are also these. Shane, we didn't use his what do you call it, drone for that one, but those guys are so good in that department with cameras and editing, all that kind of stuff, that we just sort of do stuff ourselves. It's sort of, and I keep telling those guys, if it was the 90s, we would be huge, you know, because it's like, it was a different time then, you know. I mean, it was you know, if we had this ability to you know, be able to make our own videos, make our own recordings, that kind of stuff. It's a different time now with music and releasing music, because it's just a different world. You know, I mean, like, you know, we do have hard copy music to be released, but we know that most of us don't find music that way anymore.
Right.
And you just kind of adjust to the way things are. And that's why we kind of have sort of now been leaning more into just kind of releasing singles as we go along, because no one's quite sure if the idea of releasing 10 to 12 songs with this cover artwork the way it was when I was a kid, and I still still listen to vinyl and look at the
read
artwork.
The covers and read
exactly.
them. Yeah. I miss that.
You know, it's like having like here you go. Here's a Bon Jovi record. I just randomly pulled this one out, but I mean, like, having vinyl just kind of around. That was a gift from Frank, of course. But all the Slash stuff has been released on vinyl and all that stuff. So it's, you know, it's a trip, you know. And I love listening to vinyl, looking at the lyrics, looking at all the credits and all that kind of stuff is part of the fun.
Right. And it's just, there's something old school about vinyl, isn't there? Like, you know, where you bought an album and you would just read it and you would, again, analyze the artwork and read every word.
It's different now. I mean, you know, and I don't complain about it, because we sound so old when people are like, you know, I don't get it. You know, it's like, but it's, you know, that's just, things change, and you know, people at our age talking about what somebody's listening to at 20. I just think about when you were 20 and what people our age were thinking. Right. I often look back on music I was really into at 14 years old, and some of it stands up and some of it doesn't. And sometimes I realize, well, my parents weren't necessarily offended by this music. They just thought it wasn't that good.
You're right.
And they may have been right on some of it. Some of it they might have been like, well, this is pretty good. I remember my dad saying, like, stopping every once in a while and going, who's this? And I'd say, that's Van Halen. He'd go, oh, okay. Because he would know the guitar player was good, you know.
Right.
But some of the stuff was just nonsense to him, you know, because it's just screaming.
Right. I think every generation is like that. I think every generation thinks that their music is the best.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
I think.
Now
But
it's
I like to think our generation was the best because, and the reason I say that is because the songs back it up.
I think so.
Because here we are 40 years later. I mean, I was at Rock the District 2 weeks ago, and I mean, I'm seeing bands that I paid to see 35 years ago, and I still want to pay to see them.
I know.
You know,
That's the
April
beauty
Wine,
of it.
and yeah. And you know, I had a funny experience at that show because we were fortunate enough to hang out at the Hilton. I got an invite back, so we were kind of chatting with the bands and all this. And every now and again, somebody, you know, I'll be out and someone will say, "Hey, are you Kelly from etc." Anyway, this girl says to me, "You're that girl. And I thought she was going to say from etc. And you know what she said? You're that girl that interviewed Todd Kerns." That's all she knew me by, and I'm pretty sure Judy Graham, her name is. She's probably one of your biggest fans. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's all she remembered about me is she knew that I had interviewed Todd Kerns.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I was like, honestly, funny you should mention that because he's coming on in 2 weeks, so she's here tonight. And I wanted to pass this on for Judy. She said that because you two had your own podcast during COVID.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And Judy said that watching that is literally what got her out of bed every day. Like literally, that podcast got her through one of the darkest times. So,
that's awesome. I mean, honestly, like that was the kind of thing that I literally said, like, it was just something to do while I was, while we were in that scenario. And then when it went away, quite a few people have been like, why are you not going to do it anymore? I go, well, that's not what I do. I play music. My life is crazy busy. It's something that I really enjoyed it because the whole purpose of it was just to literally talk to my friends,
right?
Or guys that if it was somebody I didn't really know, it was rare, but generally it was guys that I knew, and we were just kind of talking through this crazy time, and they have great stories, and I sit and listen to their stories all the time. And I'm talking to Blas Elias, the drummer for Slaughter, and he'll sit and tell me about touring with Kiss, and I'll be sitting there kind of like, dude, my friends would love to hear these stories.
Yeah.
So I always kind of thought like I would love to sit down and just kind of like share them. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yes. I got to run pretty soon, so I don't mean to cut it short.
No, and I'm sorry, we did go way over, and you did explain
Quite
that you had to go. So you know what? Why don't we close with just what's upcoming for you, Todd?
Well, next weekend I'm playing at a huge band shell in Daytona Beach, band shell meaning a giant stage thing that they have out in Daytona Beach, Florida. I've been very, very fortunate to be a part of Bruce Kulick's band, Bruce Kulick from Kiss, for the past, we started doing it in 2010, and it's an off and on type thing that we do, a tribute to his era of Kiss. And then our friend Neil Davis puts on Creatures Fest. They had like Bruce Kulick, Ace Frehley, Peter Criss, Vinnie Vincent, all tons of ex-members of the band. And so we're doing a party next week, and we're going to get up and play with those guys next week. Just hit him and his fun Kiss tribute band. And then after that, I go to Italy. I when I'm in town, I'm doing Raiding the Rock Vault, this great show I do in town with guys from Dio and a bunch of cool bands, and we have a blast doing that. It's a lot of fun. And then when I'm in town, I'm doing that. When I'm not, I go to Italy right away with this band called Heroes and Monsters. We made a record that you should check out. It's really great. The drummer is from Evanescence. The guitar player was from he played with Alice Cooper. He played with Huey Lewis in the News. He's played with everybody. He's the coolest guy. But he plays with this artist named Vasco Rossi, this Italian artist who's like, it's kind of like when I talked about Shane playing these amazing places. My friend Steph plays guitar in Vasco Rossi's in these multiple nights in huge soccer stadiums in Italy. Like, he's just a god over there.
Right.
And so, like all of us, we all have these other major gigs, but during COVID, it was kind of like, hey, what are you doing? You want to try and knock some ideas around? I'm like, sure. I'm literally sitting in my room like this going like, yeah, it sounds like fun. Right. And we made a record, and I got a record coming out pretty soon with Tracy Guns from LA Guns. We made a record together. Similar thing, with just another COVID project that turned out great. So I spent most of the last couple of years just writing and recording, and a bunch of music coming forward that, people are like, do you ever sleep? And I'm like, you don't understand. During COVID, it was like, what was I doing? I was like sitting here watching Netflix. So to me, it was like,
right.
Writing and recording is what I love to do. So if you take away the stage opportunity for me, then I have to do something. I pick up the guitar, write songs.
Right. And
we wrote a whole ton of TOQUE stuff that's coming soon. And so it's just getting busy and keeping busy,
Right on. Well, you know what? You can sleep in your dead, Todd, and
That's the plan.
I know you're super busy, and I'm so grateful. Thank you for taking the time to be
Thank
here. I
you.
know you have to go, and so you know what? I just behalf of the viewers, we just want to wish you. We're so proud to call you Canadian. We just wish you continued success, health, happiness, everything amazing.
Thank you
We
so
love
much.
you.
We hope to be out your way in November with TOQUE. Just when it's starting to get cold, we'll be there.
Okay, well, let us know. Let me know, and I'll make sure that everybody, all the viewers, know about it.
I absolutely will.
Okay, thank you so much, Todd. Take care.
Big love.
Okay.
Nice to see all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Todd. Thanks everybody for watching. Once again, I just want to let you know, I can barely see the comments here. I do believe it was Sheldon Arvey, and I do believe it was Ken Holst. I will go through the comments after the show, and if it turns out that there were people that answered first, I will of course get you tickets as well. So don't worry, if you answer correctly, you're going to get tickets. So once again, thank you to Good Times Comedy Club for offering the free tickets. We'll be giving them away every week during the summer. Thank you to my show sponsors, Writers and Rockers Coffee Company, and I hope to see you guys next Sunday. Chris Jokey from Helix will be here. So I hope to see you guys all there again. And yeah, it's great to be back. I'm feeling fantastic. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next week. Take care. Stay safe and sane. Be really nice to each other. Bye-bye.